to a virtual meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. The time is 7:04 p.m. and the date is Tuesday, June 9, 2020. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. The board consists of 5 members and 2 alternates, the alternates taking full part in the discussions and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflict of interest. Present tonight, members are Ms. Lisa Carson, Mr. John Goodekunst, Ms. Kay Towsley, and the alternates are Mr. Aaron Thomas and Mr. Robert Delac, who will be a voting member today in the absence of Mr. Joe Cross. I'm John Golsey, the chair. Also present are zoning administrator, Mr. David Riggs, and secretary, Mr. Paul Eschenbacher. The board operates according to the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. The zoning administrator or secretary will state the basis of the objection and any applicable facts or conditions pertaining to the case. The applicant, the appellant, or their representative will give reasons why the appeal should be viewed favorably. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in general commentary will be heard. And finally, anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard. If necessary, the appellant or the representative will offer concluding summary or rebuttal remarks. Testimony from the floor shall be closed. The board will deliberate and render a decision. According to Athens City Code Section 230703B, the board has the power to grant variances from the strict application of the code, provided the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, the spirit of code is observed, public safety and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. According to the Athens City Code Section 2307-10C, variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board makes specific findings of fact based directly on the particular evidence presented to it, that the standards and conditions imposed in this title, if applicable, have been met by the appellant. The 6 criteria that we will be using to make our decisions are exceptional circumstances, a practical difficulty and undue hardship, preservation of equal property rights, minimum variance, absence of detriment, and not being of a general nature. Since I'm going to be reading the details of all these 6 criteria later on, so I'm not going to read it now, but when we are discussing each case, I will go through them. Any person, resident or officer, department, or appointed body of the city of Athens aggrieved by a decision of the board may petition the Athens County Court of the Common Pleas concerning any illegality of the decision. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the decision of the board to the applicant. We have 3 cases tonight on the agenda, and this is the order we are going to review them. First, property at 17.5 South Lancaster Street, property at 134 Columbus Road, and the last one is property at 102 Mill Street. The board is required to take testimony under oath. Anyone is speaking tonight, aside from the board members and the code officers, you could unmute your microphones now and answer yes or no. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Again, I cannot see everyone. We consider that everyone who is going to be speaking tonight will be under oath. Okay, let's go to case number 1. This is case 20-1V, the property at 17.5 South Lancaster Street. And zone is R2. University Rentals is the appellant. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 230402 to allow construction of a parking lot in an R2 zone where such use is not allowed, parking for use on premises only. Mr. Eschenbacher or Mr. Riggs, any comment on this piece of property?
Well, I just wanted to remind the board members that this current owner has been before the board twice in the past 4 years requesting variances. In 2016, he asked for a variance to put a duplex there, but there wasn't enough square footage, and he was denied. He asked the same thing again in 2018 and again was denied. There was a variance given to the property way back in 1972 to build a single home there, but the variance was for setbacks, but that was granted. Since then, that house, of course, has been torn down and the lot has been empty for, I'd say, over 25 years.
I know I was at the 17 South Lancaster. Is 17.5 behind the building?
Yes.
Okay.
There's an alley there next to 17.
Yes.
That would be the access to it.
Okay. We have some background noise. If you could please mute yourself.
Does it have to be? Does it have?
Oh, Miss Whaley?
Okay.
Miss Whaley? Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Not able to be here. No,
Okay.
I mean,
Please state your name so we know who is talking. All right. Anything else? Any questions for Mr. Reichenbacher?
The camera is probably, there isn't a camera.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm wondering.
Okay, would the appellant please state your name, your address, and your case?
Hi, this is Rusty Rittenhouse from Lavelle & Associates, 449 East State Street, Athens, Ohio. I'm the attorney for the appellant. Also present is Dan DeLuca, who's the managing member for University Rentals. What's your business address?
15 Dove Drive.
15 Dove Drive is his business address.
And it appears that you have not been able to build a duplex or a regular house maybe on the property. I saw it from back of the 17 and it was lots of trees and bushes in there, so I didn't exactly could see the depth of the lot, but it seems that it should be a pretty large size if you're putting 18 spaces in there, right?
Yeah, so we University Rentals has, on 2 separate occasions, as Paul mentioned, tried to seek to develop that property, and both were denied. So we're trying a different approach. Maybe a good place to start, if I can reference a good photograph of the property to help you visualize it. If you could turn to page 15 of 39 of the documents I've provided. This is an aerial view of the property and the surrounding lots.
Okay.
In red is approximately where this lot is located. It's kind of in the center of all the properties there. It doesn't abut West State and or Lancaster or West Washington. It's kind of in the middle. What the appellant is seeking to do is to develop that into a commercial parking lot of approximately 18 spaces. They own many properties in that area that would help provide parking for their tenants, which in turn would also remove cars that are parking on South Lancaster Street and West Washington. I've attached also a diagram of the proposed parking lot. That is page 17 of 39.
All right. So I could probably, let's see. Sounds like
It would be approximately 9 parking spaces of 180 square feet each on each side, and then the middle would provide for drainage.
Just exit out.
just, oh,
Would that be level or on an angle?
Yeah, it would have to be level. It'd be pretty level. It would require quite a bit of clearing. Just to kind of put it in perspective what the property currently looks at, if you start on page 19 of 39, we can kind of look at what the property currently exists. It is, at one time, as Paul mentioned, back in the 70s or so, or 80s, there may have been a single residence there, but it's since fallen down or been demolished. And all that's there now are trees and some segments of the foundation. Scott, I don't know if you can bring that up on your screen there.
Lots of deer back there too. Woo!
I'm sure there are that probably don't. We may have all had to avoid hitting them. But this is the alley leading up to the property. If you go to the next page, this is facing the property. It is heavily, a lot of vegetation, and you can see the portions of what I believe to be the old foundation there. Turning to the next page, page 21. This is a further picture of the property facing it. Heading to the next photo, you can see how wooded the property is. I don't know if you can even walk through it. Maybe covered in briars. Turn to the next page. This is kind of the corner of the property. There is a pole there. That probably would stay there. And then if you go further, this circles around to 17 and a half. Is that right? The property south. What's the property above the south green south?
It goes up to 85 West State.
Goes up to 85 West State, and this is kind of the alley and the drive leading up there. Circling around the next page, there is some parking above it. You can kind of get a view of some more of the wooded area. If you turn to page 27 of 39, this is a view of is that South Lancaster Street. There are not very many parking spaces there. What spaces there are pretty compact and busy.
59.
There's the school has a parking garage there, and it's a loading zone at times. That you can flip to the next page. You can see it's a tow-away zone from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. in certain segments of that street at the corner. And then if you flip forward to page 29, this is another view of South Lancaster of the current parking. That intersects with West Washington Street. And I don't know if you've been on West Washington Street in a while, but it's a very difficult to find parking on West Washington. If you flip forward to page 31 of 39, you can see the congested parking that's on the street. One of the goals of this would be to help alleviate the parking that's currently on South Lancaster and West Washington by some of these tenants could park up there instead. This would open up for other property owners, which would be a benefit to them.
A question? So
Yes.
How many tenants do you have to put in these lots? Is it all going to be your tenants, or are you going to rent out to the public at large or other business people?
This would be all university rentals tenants,
We're not charging either.
and he wouldn't be charging them. It would just be part of the rent or part of the agreement. University rental, how many properties do you own? I mean, you're one of the largest rental companies in Athens. he has a couple hundred properties total, but in that area, any idea how many?
I mean, we need at least probably 20 spaces, but that's all it.
Yeah. Dan said he really could use about 20 spaces, but this is only for about 18. But again, it would be just for his properties. There is precedent for putting a parking lot in R2. If you may recall back in around December, Mr. Hunter applied for a variance for the same purpose for property, I believe, off of, was it North Lancaster Street?
59.
If you turn to page 34, this was his start of his application. Just to refresh your memory.
Well, that's okay because we look at each case on its own merits. So
Okay,
yeah.
we do believe ultimately this. If you turn to page 39, you can kind of get a view of Mr. Hunter's parking lot. We believe we could provide better parking than this for the tenants. You can see the 39. It shows kind of cars facing every which way.
Right on the alley too.
And it's a one-way alley there. This, if you pull off the alley to what we're discussing onto South Lancaster, that's a two-way street as opposed to a one-way street.
I saw a statement for the flood hazard variances and then also a report from Athens Soil and Water Conservation District. Is this place in the flood zone?
No.
Okay. So why did we have to know about the soiling?
To prove that it's not too slippy to build something on it.
Okay. And I assume, because I really couldn't understand all those technical terms, I assume it's okay then, right?
Yeah. Also, I wanted to add that if Mr. DeLuca does get his variance tonight, he does have to submit full plans for a parking lot, which includes stormwater runoff, paving, dimensions, all that. He can't just go up there and pave it. He has to give us a set of plans for it.
Okay.
That's absolutely no problem. We can do that.
And you had a drainage in the middle of between the two rows of the parking spaces, right?
That's our proposal. We would be flexible if there would be a better solution to that.
Okay. Any questions for the appellant? Okay, we may come back to you, and we're going to see if there's anybody in here who is wishing to speak in favor of the request. Anyone, please unmute your mic and speak. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment? And anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard now. Okay. Unless there's any questions for the appellant or the code office, we're going to close the floor for the further discussions. And then maybe entertain somebody maybe could make a motion.
Yes, I'll make the motion. I move that the board grant a variance to the property at 17.5 South Lancaster Street from ACC 230402 to allow construction of a parking lot in an R2 zone where such use is not allowed, parking for use on premises only.
I second.
Okay, John, second. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. In my view, I think that maybe this is one of the only ways that this property could be used, for any usage. The building apparently was not suitable for that place. So there are some exceptional circumstances in the way this lot has been laid out. Any other comments?
I think anyone who's had kids in middle school know that that's the worst area ever for parking. It's probably the worst street in Athens, and getting any cars off of that would be better. That whole area around there.
We were talking about exceptional circumstances to the property. You are saying that that would not be a good place for parking?
I'd say it would be a great place for parking. Those
Oh, okay, great
cars
place.
wouldn't be
Okay.
on the street.
I heard the other way around. Okay. Practical difficulty and undue hardship.
I think, as you said, John, it's such a small lot that it's really hard to find a use for it. This would be a use that the size would lend to itself to.
Yeah, even today that almost half a town is out of town, out of the people, I had a difficult time to park to go see this place. So this would be a good addition. Preservation of equal property rights. I don't think there are too many properties in that area that like to have a 18-20 spaces parking lot or have the land to do it. So we are not really giving any extra privilege to this property. Minimum variance. Okay, you're still on. So any comments on minimum variance?
I think it is minimum, yes.
Okay. Absence of detriment. I'm sure the code office and the architects and they will take care of all the safety issues, which we are not supposed to discuss. Not of a general nature. No. Are we ready to vote? I'm going to call the names and then you say either yes or no. Unmute your microphone. Lisa?
No.
No. Kay?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Yes. And Robert?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So you have the variance 4-1.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome to stay if you like.
Mr. Rittenhouse, Mr. DeLuca, just come into the office again and we'll go through the whole filing and all that again, but just come in later in the week.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you again. We're gonna bow out for the evening, but everybody have a safe night.
Okay. Let's go to case number 2. Is 20 Mr. Eschenbacher was the first case was the one that they wanted to have a face-to-face meeting and then they decided to come in here because it's the first case of the year.
Well, Mr. DeLuca originally wanted to have a face-to-face meeting, but he...
Okay, so that was the same case. Okay, very good. Case number 20-6V, the property at 134 Columbus Road. Zone is B3. RVC Architects are the appellant. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 2303-11A1 to allow an accessory structure with a right side setback of 2 feet and a rear setback of 1.5 feet, where 5 feet is the minimum requirement for each setback. This is for accessory structure, right?
Yes.
5 feet. Okay, Mr. Reichenbacher, is that the same place as the Goodwill, right? The same area?
Yeah, across the street from it.
Okay, okay. Any questions for the code office?
I beg pardon?
Any question for the code office from the members?
This is the new title building, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, appellant, please state your name and your address for the records and your case.
Sure. I am Colin Widows with RVC Architects of 131 West State Street in Athens. As you mentioned, this is for the relatively new security title building. This is at a garage in the rear of the site. As you mentioned, this will be impinging into the setbacks on the side. we are requesting this mainly be due to the irregular shape of the site. It kind of comes to a point there. You can see the drawing that was attached to the application. And so we are kind of hemmed in by that shape, and also the setback from the ditch line of the stream there, which is also kind of forcing our hand in terms of where this could be placed. The owner is requesting this garage for security for employees, but we'd also like to maintain the two existing employee spaces behind the building, and navigating fitting the garage in the spaces is kind of what is forcing our hand to be able to maintain maneuverability behind the building. In general,
that's really tight back there.
Yes, it is.
And that fence is so close.
Any questions for the appellant? So you couldn't move this a little bit by a few feet to make it 5 feet, huh?
Well, it's when you, because of that corner of the site comes to a point.
Mm-hmm.
As you begin to shift that way, you're also affecting that back edge in the ditch line stream. Then it begins to push forward, and then in terms of a car being able to back out of the garage, maneuver around the building to access the drive, that's kind of the pinch point that we're dealing with.
Okay, very good. Let me see if there is anyone who would like to speak in favor of this proposal, this variance. Anyone? You may have to mute your microphone if you're speaking. And then anyone wishing to speak in general or in opposition to this variance? No, okay. All right, if there is nothing more, there's no more questions, let's make a motion. Lisa, go ahead.
Grant a variance for the property at 134 Columbus Road from Athens City Code 230311A1 to allow an accessory structure with a right side setback of 2 feet and a rear setback of 1.5 feet, where 5 feet is the minimum requirement for each setback.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, John, was that you, John? Okay, I saw 2 hands going up. Okay. Exceptional circumstances. What is so exceptional about this piece of property that it will be different than other properties in the same zone, the same vicinity?
It is very pointy back there. And
yeah.
Kind of steep.
The shape of the land. Because of that, it will generate practical difficulty and undue hardship to situate that accessory building in there. Do you all agree, or do you have any more comments? Preservation of equal property rights. Again, we are not granting any additional privileges to this property because of the exceptional circumstances and the shape of the land. A minimum variance, well, it's within the few feet, so I would say it is minimum. Absence of detriment, none. Not of a general nature. I would say that should be fine. Are we ready to vote? John, let's go with you first.
Yes.
Yes. Kay?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
And I'm voting yes as well. So you have the variance 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And now we're going to go to the last case. Case number 20-7V. The property at 102 Mill Street, zone is R3. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 230314 to allow a fence in the front setback where a fence is not permitted. So when I was reading the history of this fence, there used to be a fence before, and that has been gone. So the question for the code office, was that initial original fence was grandfathered, or did they have a permit for that?
I don't know. I assumed it was grandfathered. We show no permits for a fence for it going back to the 80s at least, so
okay.
I would assume it was grandfathered.
Okay. And I saw that there was a fence just put in there. It's not really put in ground in the cement, but it's loose right now, but it showed that they're coming all the way to the curb, to the walkway.
Yes, if this variance is granted, Ms. Whaley will still have to go to City Council to get a revocable license.
Okay.
Because it's actually going to be partly in the right-of-way for Mill Street.
Okay. Any questions for the code office?
Yeah, question. Do you know how far into or from the sidewalk the right-of-way extends? So how much city property would she be occupying with the fence? I'm not sure off the top of my head. Go ahead with the meeting. In the next room, I have plat maps where I can see what the right-of-way of the Mill Street is. Go ahead and ask him a couple other questions, or go on, and I'll go look and see.
You can ask other questions from Mr. Riggs. He should be in there regarding this case, aside from the setback. Any questions for Mr. Riggs? Okay, John, go ahead.
I had a question on how high the fence was. I thought I saw two different.
It was only about 3 feet, I guess. It wasn't very
3.5
tall.
Because cars pulling out of next door would have to be able to see.
Yeah.
With that.
The way it was right now, I think the dogs can knock it off. Just kind of get in there. Anyway.
This is very unusual because it's she lives on Mill Street, correct? She's not a renter or anything like that. But
we'll find out. We'll get the appellant and we'll ask those questions.
I do have a question for the code office.
Sure.
Is Mr. Riggs here?
Yes.
Hi.
Oh, he's secret. Yeah, I just have a question about the implications of the material that we received that indicates that the police chief says that the fence is a safety issue. And my question is, does he have greater standing in our decision-making process than other people who might oppose the...
Was that fire chief or police chief?
Police chief was in the email, and I think they quoted the fire chief too. But Captain Pyle did say that
that was my question too, actually. That was one of my questions. Which one? I don't think the zoning can overrule the police chief or the fire chief, but maybe Mr. Riggs can answer that.
That's a great question. You should, as a city employee, we work for the community, but this is really kind of a safety and concern for the police department. Both Captain Harvey and Chief Pyle indicated some concerns, and I think the fire chief had some concerns as well. And this is particularly related to the street parties and the block parties that occur. So it's not a problem all the time. It's just a problem when they have the mounted police and the foot patrol in that area. The concern, and I don't want to speak for the chief, but the concern was it would be more difficult to get access in and out of that area.
Mr. Eschenbacher, you are back.
Yeah, I'm working on it here.
Oh, okay.
So because they have parties there and because they have rowdy people, they need to bring in police horses and they need to bring in hoses because the partiers burn houses down. A resident of the street is they don't want them to have a fence to keep the rowdy people's dogs off of her lawn.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm hearing. That's a very Athens problem. I would think if it was my house, I'd probably want the same too. She has a kid in there who also is, in the middle of this party area.
Let's
letters by the police chief and everything like that, and I don't know if it's we can't overrule the police chief or the fire chief.
Well, we don't discuss safety issues, so that should be another department. I don't know if he granted variance. Can they overrule us or vice versa? Let's bring the appellant, Ms. Alice Wheely. Are you there, or
unmute?
Anyone representing her?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, could you please state your name for the records and your address and also your case?
Alice Wheely, 102 Mill. I guess I'm case 2007V.
So we have read your statement, your narrative on, it seems that dogs are the issue. Our neighbors are walking their dogs, and that has been an issue for you.
Not picking up after their dogs. There's an enormous number of dogs there. I grew up in that neighborhood. There were almost no dogs when I grew up there. So it wasn't an issue, 40 years ago. There, as you know, there have been fences in that neighborhood before for various reasons. I'm not proposing to fence the backyard, which I know police have occasionally put horses on my backyard or our backyard without asking our permission. I don't think it's fair for those of us who have to live there, because we're taking care of elderly people and children, and own the property ourselves, to have to accommodate parties that nobody ever asked our permission, whether we want people walking constantly through our property. And yes, they do go on the actual private parts of our property. They vandalize, they deliberately leave trash on my elderly parents' property, so I have to pick it up. I've alluded to vandalism that I've experienced, not just about this issue, but other issues. And I was not informed that the police had some kind of objection, because to my knowledge, I've never seen the police go through the front or station their horses on the front yard. Although the first year I came back to Athens, I did see them when I was gone, and I came back, I saw that they had put police in the backyard without asking our permission. But, actually I don't object to that. The problem is that I cannot, constantly pick up dog poop all day long, since I have dependents to help and care for. And I don't think it's fair that I have to accommodate parties that aren't even street parties. Some towns have like a street party, like let's say they have a party on Court Street, and a street party that I've experienced in other parts of this country is like it stays on the street, and the businesses have agreed to have the party in their street. So, but the parties that the allusion is made to, these are parties where people, they're not just stay on the street like Mill Street, they go through all sorts of private property. And since most people are renting their property, I suppose they don't care. But I don't think that it's fair for those of us who are not in that situation to be forced to accommodate people's parties that's on private property. How is that You know, how is it fair to deny me the most minimum attempt to try to control the amount of dog poop that's left around where I live? Because some party that became a tradition, you know, maybe about 25 years ago, and that now consists not just staying on a public street, but going constantly through people's private property. Why is my family expected to have to accommodate that?
Well, you know, my comment is that you're not the only one. I drove up and down the street, and there was only one other property that had some form of fence. It was property at 146. And everybody...
That's rental property, you are aware of that.
Yeah.
There's nobody living there with a family. That is a rental property on 146. Well, but there are parts of Athens where people have fenced their property in a way, for example, on the east side that interferes with pedestrians right of way. I have to walk in the street because some people have put their fence
I understand,
into what should have been the sidewalk.
Yeah, well, I understand, but we don't give the variance to the...
I'm not doing that. I'm not blocking off any sidewalks.
Well, the thing is that
the fence is anchored, of course, it will have to be a little bit further back than the current one, you know, because you have to pour concrete and so forth and so on. But as I've pointed out, the problem with putting a fence at the right of way, all you have to do is have gone maybe in March to the West State Cemetery, the space between the sidewalk and the fence on the West State Cemetery, which is a national landmark, by the way, and has Civil War veterans, you know, American Revolution veterans. It's absolutely littered with dog crap from end to end. You can't see it as much now because the weeds and the grass have grown over it. But that's what you get in those parts of Athens, including where I live now, because of the absolute enormous increase in dog ownership by students, which didn't used to be a problem.
Can you hear me?
Didn't used to be the case.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so let us speak now, and then maybe you can have a chance to speak again later. We're not giving the variance to the owners, to the people who live in there. We are giving to the property. And I saw a lot of property just like yours. They have the same setback. They have the same grass area. And so I don't think all the dogs just come to your property. If there's an issue, they go to all properties.
Yes, there's an enormous amount of dog crap in that neighborhood.
So we're not going
but
to...
I'm not a student, and I'm not an absentee owner who doesn't care if the students, you know, put dog crap, I guess, all over their property. I have to live there every day with a young child and elderly parents in the next door. So I'm not an absentee, you know, that's what a lot of times absentee owners become like. They don't care that much as long as it's not, you know, they don't care about things so much maybe about dog poop. They may care about damage to the property.
Okay.
I understand that.
All right.
But this is a...
Now, we have heard you already. You're not repeating yourself now, okay? You're just repeating now. So we want to discuss this further. The code office, is there any way that the owners can document any issues that they have with the party or the dogs, and then
I have documentation on dog
let me please finish, okay? We'll give you a chance to speak. Is there any office within the city of Athens that will take care of those issues?
Well, the solid waste people in our department, this comes under their authority, but of course, you know, you have to catch the people in the act. Otherwise, you know, we can't trace where the dog messes come from. You know, if Miss Whaley is able to find out who the people are, or at least where they live, that would be helpful. But like I said, it's very difficult for the solid waste people to cite anybody other than the property owner, and of course, we don't want to do that. So it is a difficult thing to enforce, like I said, they have to catch the people actually and the dogs actually in the act.
What about the parties?
Parties, again,
Vandalism.
There have been people who have put up the yellow tape around their properties to keep people out, or in some cases to keep them on their property. But there have been cases in the past where people have put up the yellow tape around their property to keep people out. I don't know how effective that is. I just know that they do it. Otherwise, again, as Ms. Whaley says, for Millfest and stuff, it's difficult to keep people corralled or on the street on any property, not just hers. So.
Okay. Any other questions for the appellant?
I have a question. Ms. Whaley, so having a fence in your yard, would it be a structured fence to keep people out or to keep dogs out? And
it's mostly, so it would be similar to what's there already, except just plainer. And there's already a gap there on the side because the postal delivery person can come without trying to have to go through a gate, which I didn't think would be very convenient. So if somebody really and sometimes people deliberately try to do that to harass me. They go through the gap, and then jump over the fence, when they're going uptown to the bar. So yeah, occasionally a person could go on there. But generally speaking, once I put the fence up there, I didn't get dog crap there anymore. Whereas when I first came, the first year I came, there was a constant problem of dog crap in the front. The back is less an issue for reasons I don't have to bore you with. And for one thing, I can see it a lot better. And the practical difficulty, are you serious? No one can be sitting in front of their house all day. As I mentioned, I have a minor child and I'm helping my elderly parents. And, I shop, I work, sometimes I don't have a full-time job right now. May have more of a job later, but I can't possibly do that. I've already brought up incidentally the problem of vandalism and actual violent harassment, as well as verbal harassment of my family to a certain person on the city council, and his response was, "There's nothing we can do about it." When you have neighbors that are disrespectful, your only solution really is the fence. When I came back, I thought that relations in this town between students and town people was a little bit more like it used to be. And so in the beginning, I asked people to turn down incredibly loud music on weekdays in person. And when I did that to my neighbor, they started harassing me for the rest of the year, and they broke my window. So I no longer try to take care of these problems in person. When people do things that they're not supposed to do, like, letting their dog crap on your lawn, or too loud, too late at certain places, there's two solutions in this town now, since students simply mock most of them or harass anybody who approaches them personally. That is to fence the part of the area that is of the greatest concern and you're least able to police, and call the police and ask them to they can deal with the music. They can't deal with dog crap, obviously. For the reason that was already brought up, you can't.
We need to move on. I'm sorry, but we are just stating what you have already said.
Mr. Golsey?
Yes.
I wanted to ask Ms. Whaley a couple questions.
Sure,
Ms. Whaley,
go ahead.
The fence that's out there now, is that what you plan to put there if you get your variance? That fence that's out there now?
No, It would be similar. It's 2.5 feet, which is what the current fence is. No ornamentation, is completely plain. It would be anchored in concrete, so I wouldn't have the problem of people stealing parts of it. And hopefully it would be harder to bend. I can give you, do you want a sort of a picture?
Well, no,
I don't know.
Also,
Like,
so the fence that you're planning on, if you do get the variance, is probably going to be no more than 3 feet high.
oh no, of course not. First of all, I would never do that. I understand that there's a vision problem there. It's one reason why I'm always trying to, in the summer, cut that mulberry bush that's there all the time. Now, last summer I had to be away for, a month and a half or something, so it might have gotten out of hand. But I'm, when there's leaves, I'm always trying to cut it. I would never put anything like a solid fence or a high fence, because I know that, including my elderly mother who still drives, the people need to be able to see down Mill Street if they pull out.
That's all I wanted to know.
So it's simply, I think I mentioned that in my variance. I said that the palings, the bars in between are going to be pretty wide. Nothing like, like some of those fences that you saw, over in the Elmwood area that are much more solid or something like that.
Any other questions for the appellant?
Yeah.
Lisa, go ahead.
I have two questions. One is how long the fence that's currently there has been up? Just roughly.
I think that the one that's there, I'm not talking about the grandfathered things that you, was there, I think I put it, so I put it up in pieces. See, originally I thought that kind of temporary thing, which is cheaper, obviously, than something more permanent, I thought that would be accepted. So it was all up by the fall, and 3 weeks into, or maybe 2 weeks, whatever it was, into the beginning of the OU session in the fall, someone stole one of the posts. Those posts are removable. I'm sure you figured that out. That's one reason why most of them aren't there anymore. Most of them got stolen as a way to harass me. Obviously, it's of no use to these people. They don't have any use for this post. It's just to show, I harassed the old towny hillbilly bitch, which I've actually been called by some of these people. It's just to harass me that they did that. So yes, it was pretty much in place beginning in fall, and of course now a lot of pieces are missing and are bent and vandalized.
Okay. You have all my sympathy. It sounds really hellish. But I also wonder, I'm going to return later to the question of the police chief and the fire chief, but I live on Grosvenor, and there's a lot of drunken back and forth on that street as well. And there's a house very close to Carpenter that had a wooden fence around it for years. And we observed that it got kicked in, knocked down over and over and over and over. And that wasn't even, I'm sure harassment does play a role in your situation, but it's also the case that these people that are drunk and walking around in the streets just break things, because I think it's a very nice home, but I think it is rented out. And they eventually pulled the fence down. So I just wonder, I guess, to a certain extent, how, unless you built a brick wall or something, I'm wondering whether you wouldn't still have the problem of people damaging it.
There is a wooden fence.
That's not really a question. It's more of an observation.
Okay. Well, I would just say there is a wooden fence behind a rental house in Kurtz, and that hasn't really been damaged. So I think part of it has to do with location. Also, it's not going to be wood. It's going to be metal.
Okay.
So that's one reason why I wouldn't have put wood. There used to be a picket fence a wooden picket fence on the house, like just kind of across from my house, or across Oak Street. So, and that was never damaged. I kind of wish they had never taken it down, but that's a different issue. Yeah, sorry, honey. They gotta decide before. My kid is giving me. I know. Bye. I know. I'm at the library, so they're gonna close in about 2 minutes, I think. I don't have good access at home.
Any other questions for the appellant? By the way, Lisa, that fence which is there right now, it's very loose. I mean, you can really pick it up easily. So it's not permanent. It's just temporary.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone wishing to speak in general comments? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard now. We do have a few emails exchanged. And Mr. Eschenbacher, since you were involved in some of them, if you don't mind, would you like to read them for the records?
Okay. Well, our zoning administrator, Mr. David, talked to the chief of police and wrote this. Chief, 102 Mill was denied a front yard fence permit. The applicant is going to the BZA for a variance. I think that I recall you thought a front fence could be a problem in this area because the mounted police would have difficulty patrolling Mill during Halloween. Would you or Captain Harvey have any comments that I should pass on to the BZA regarding this case? And then Ralph Harvey wrote back, I would echo Chief Pyle's comments and add that it may also hamper fire emergency medical service operations depending on its size, location, relative to the other structures, permanence, heights, openings, etc. So that was from Captain Harvey. And then we got
there is one
letter
sent to you.
Yeah, let me see if I can find this.
There's also he was echoing Captain Pyle's comments. It was right below on the one that I have.
Yeah. Yes, we are definitely opposed to the front yard fencing in this area. There are 5 weekends or more a year we need to have mounted police on Mill Street. Millfest, Palmerfest, Halloween, the first 2 weekends of the school year. The fencing presents a cut risk to our horses and would be problematic from other perspectives, mostly from a crowd control perspective. The kind of fencing could make a difference, I suppose. And then
there is one from Andrew Vogt. I can read it if you don't have it.
Yeah, I can't find it right now. Go ahead.
Okay, this was sent by Mr. Andrew Vogt to Mr. Eschenbacher on June 1st. It says, Paul, I hope you're well. I'm writing with regards to the above reference case. I own the house next door, 106 Mill. I think to allow this fence would not be wise. One, the fence appears to be made from a couple of different fences. It lacks uniformity. And number two, it sets a precedent that could be referred to that isn't up to a standard. I think this fence is an eyesore. Also, John Wharton applied for a variance for this property at 118 Mill Street. He wanted to put a wrought iron fence. He was denied. This due to the fire chief saying that it could impede the ability to drag horses.
Hoses.
Yeah, hoses, yeah, sorry.
They're two businessmen, right? They're not permanent residents of Mill Street themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will be out of town for the June 9 meeting. Please accept this letter as my opposition to the request.
So, where are we in the, can I keep talking or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I comment on Mr. Vogt's letter? He's referring to the current one, not uniform eyesore. He hasn't seen, what I'm proposing, which is more uniform, presumably won't be an eyesore because there won't be pieces pulled out from it. It won't be, leaning over because people have, pushed it so often and twisted parts of it, etc. So, the other thing is, I will point out that the fence is nowhere near, the property line with him. Obviously, I don't, the whole driveway, etc. It's a whole driveway between the fence and his property. So there shouldn't be any issue with, the snow. And if I ever, for example, fence the back, I obviously, would consult with him and work with him. But he certainly is definitely an absentee owner. He's actually told me I should put my elderly parents in a nursing home so that he can buy that property. I hardly think he's an objective, or maybe that's the wrong word, a fair person to listen to on this issue. He doesn't care about the problems caused by dog crap and other antisocial behavior in the neighborhood.
Well, again, we sympathize with your situation and we fully understand that. But, our job in here is to grant variances to the property, not to the people who live in it. And the other cases that was mentioned in whether they live in there or not is based on the property. The variance is given to the property forever, for many, many, many years to come. So, there's nobody else is wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, and at this point, unless you have any final say, this is your last chance if you want to say anything more.
Yeah, I have a question about, since I had no idea that the, police chief, it sounds very vague, this is, this issue potential, it might depend on designs. And he, nobody ever came to me and gave me the emails from police chief and or fire chief, etc. I never had any chance to talk to them about, more specific issues. Would I have the opportunity to do that?
That's what I was wondering too. I would also observe that, I don't know if Andy Vogt ever drives down Mill Street on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, but if he wants to see an eyesore, he could try that out. So I don't think the fence is any worse than the trash all over every single yard that I see every time I go down there. But I think, I'm very sympathetic to this case, but the issue of safety that is raised by the fire chief and police chief seems important, yet there does seem to be a little gleam of hope in that the police chief says the kind of fencing could possibly make a difference. And I wonder if there's a way to proceed if the home...
Yeah, like I could actually show him what I'm proposing.
Yeah, if there's a way to
see what
forward,
kind of reaction.
Short of granting a variance or denying a variance, maybe she could go and discuss this with them to see if she can't get some kind of relief from trespassers on her property. Which
if it's just a person without a dog, I generally don't mind, actually. The problem is really the dog. And it's the same with, I don't mind the police using the backyard, on these parties, but to use the parties for an excuse not to give me, the right to fence the fence, when it's the kind of party which is all, how is it legal to never consult people who own property, whether, they want, and then the parties which don't really have any legal sting to begin with, apparently, kind of vague. But you can't, get yourself a little bit of protection from dog crap because of, a party once a year that you never gave any consent to that actually includes, constant trespassing on your property. it boggles my mind that that's used as an excuse not to allow a fence. But I definitely, for just general city relations purposes, I think I would like to, maybe, consult with the police or and see what the issue is.
And
if what I actually propose is going to be a problem, or as they say, it depends on design and so forth.
I have a question for Mr. Riggs and Mr. Eschenbacher.
Mm-hmm.
Were the police chief or the fire chief invited to this to give their comments at all, or was their emails just?
As far as I know, they were just invited to give their comments.
Okay.
And they did it via email.
Okay.
If the board wishes to continue the case so that Ms. Whaley can have a meeting with the police department about this, it's up to the board.
I thought that Lisa was getting there. For maybe Lisa, would you like to table this case?
Well, it makes sense to me. I'd want to. Oh, hang on. Yeah, I'm still on. It makes sense to me, but I don't know what other people feel.
Well, you can make a motion. We'll find out.
Okay.
So one more question just to clarify. John, you mentioned, I think, that we're not generally supposed to consider safety issues in our decision, or is that
No,
correct?
we don't consider safety issues. Those are a different department.
But it does seem.
So the remarks by the chief and the other chief are null and void because of the safety of the horses, et cetera, or we should not take that into consideration at all, or I'm confused.
I think that's very problematic because presumably, if they were to decide that any fence was impeding their progress in policing a party, they would probably have the authority to have it removed. So it seems like it would be better to have these discussions with them and the homeowner maybe before, so they could see if there is a compromise that could be reached. I don't know. My thinking.
Yeah, otherwise we have a decision we make may be overruled by the police department.
Right.
Which doesn't seem like good government to not coordinate that.
It's not our job to consider what we think would be safety issues for a variance, but when the law enforcement has already expressed concerns about a situation, it seems like they need to be able to address that.
Also, Mr. Gutekunst, to answer your question from a few minutes ago, the right-of-way on Mill Street is 60 feet. And from the best way I can measure it, it looks like the right-of-way line in that yard is halfway between the sidewalk and the front porch. So it looks like it splits the front yard across. So where she has her fences now would definitely require a revocable license from city council. Even if the zoning board votes yes on this fence, she would still have to go to city council.
Okay, the board members, would you like to table this? We'll make a motion, and then we will, give a chance to the appellant to speak to the other departments, the fire and the police, and we can make the tape available to those chief of police and fire chief, and they can view this and express their opinion. Or we could vote on this and then have them to overrule us if they could.
I prefer to table it.
Okay, that's probably the best. So Lisa, you go ahead and make the motion.
So do I have to name the case and everything?
Yeah. Just the property. Just the property is fine.
Okay, so I move that we table the case involving the property at 102 Mill Street until such time as the appellant can address some of the issues that have been raised by local law enforcement.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? All you can say yes or no.
Yes.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, so the motion carries. Ms. Bailey, what we're going to do, we're going to have you to discuss your issues with the chief of police and the fire chief, and they should probably provide a statement to the code office and express their opinion, either yes or no, and then we're going to have to find out because they are a part of the city, right? I mean, they are a part of the city. The code office is a part of a city. We can overrule by granting a variance, which means overruling the city officials. So I assume that we can also overrule the chief of police or the fire chief, but I'm not sure. So we have to discuss that with our law director.
Also, Ms. Whaley, I'm going to go ahead and consider that this is tabled until the next meeting in July. That doesn't mean you have to have everything ready by July. If for some unforeseen reason you're still not prepared, you can ask for a continuance then as well. But right now, I will schedule you for the July meeting in hopes that you'll have everything ready to go on your side by then, if that's all right with you.
What day is the meeting?
The July meeting is the 14th, July 14th.
Ooh, okay, yikes. Okay. I definitely will be ready. The problem might be the other way. But,
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I'll schedule you for the July 14th meeting. If there's some unforeseen thing that you can't make it, of course, just let us know, and then we'll take care of it from there.
Okay.
Also, Mr. Eschenbacher, I'm just wondering, we don't want to create hardship for her to go meet with these people. Is there a different mechanism that the city could maybe contact those people and get a ruling?
The police chief, you mean?
Yeah, I mean...
well, we have officially. That's what that email is.
Okay.
I think our side, we're satisfied with what is in that email.
Okay.
If Ms. Whaley is dissatisfied, then she should pursue that with the police, with Chief Pyle and so forth that way.
Okay. Very good.
I think she'll want to talk to him about his thought that there might be some form of fencing that would be acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, we're going to table that case. The only other things left in here is disposition of minutes from May 12, 2020. I read it. Looked very good. And do we have a motion to accept the minutes of May 12?
Can I say so moved?
And I'll second. Lisa moves, I second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes of May 12th, say aye.
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 Any in opposition? No? Okay. Very good. 5-0. And that's it.
Well, I have one more thing to add.
Okay.
Next month, the July meeting will be my last meeting. I'm retiring at the end of July. So I'm giving you guys warning. It is up to you guys to figure out who's going to take my job when I'm gone. It's up to the zoning board. So you have a month and a half to figure it out.
Congratulations, first of all, and we are all volunteering. Would you like to volunteer to be the secretary?
Who, me? No, that's all right.
Okay, we will discuss this later, and
we will miss you.
We
will.
Yeah, we will.
Thank you.
We will.
Thanks for your
so
support.
young.